And with that guitar strum, you know what time it is. It's time for your favorite podcast of the week. It's the 4th and 1 podcast, brought to you by you guys, the followers at anchor.fm/4th and 1. Follow us on Instagram for all the clips and other highlights at 4th and 1 podcast. It's your boy Fancy Trash Can, sitting next to, as always, Captain Boring. And week number 7 is in the books as of, for some reason, yesterday, ESPN says, but that's not right. It was Saturday evening with a big upset. Again, they don't have these things freaking ranked by the day. Tennessee beating Alabama is what capped a day of upsets and surprises and all sorts of things. But what started it off was number 5 Michigan hosting the Nittany Lions of Penn State and just deciding to destroy them come second half. That's fair, I feel like.
Yeah, I absolutely. That was one of the most... This is the most impressive I've seen Michigan look in a 2-year span in, well, forever. His history would back that up. Michigan is 7-0 in back-to-back seasons for the first time since 1973 and 74, I think it is. Sometimes in the 70s, so like 50 years ago. Penn State basically said, we're going to do this, and you're going to lay down and take it. And Michigan looked at them and said, no, that's quite the opposite, and basically did whatever they want. Penn State came in with the number 5 rushing defense in the country. They had allowed through 5 games 400 yards total. In that game alone to Michigan, they allowed 418 yards. And so Michigan just did whatever they wanted. Michigan's also starting to get kind of a Jordan complex, a Michael Jordan complex, because of what transpired in the tunnel.
Right. I sent you that video. This has happened twice now where Michigan goes into the tunnel. So for those of you who don't know, which is probably most of you, I'm going to fix my camera here and hopefully it won't kick me out like it has before in the past. Michigan has a single tunnel that splits into both locker rooms. So normally what happens is one team comes out, normally the away team, and then the home team comes back out on the field. And vice versa at halftime. So home team will come out, then away team will come out because it's on the away sidelines. So they have to share a tunnel in order to get back to the locker rooms. And for some reason, both Penn State and Ohio State, going in with a close score, 3-point score, decided to get chirpy in the locker room and were having to be held back by assistant coaches and referees. And then, it was Ohio State last year, they came out of the tunnel and got destroyed in the second half, which is what happened with, now he's being deemed as Blake the Great, running all over your number 5 defense. And all of a sudden, Ohio State should start shaking in their boots because it's going to be about the only competition they face until the college football playoff is Michigan, I think.
Probably. And I think it works both ways because I think you could say the same thing at this point about Michigan. Now, Michigan does have a game against Michigan State. Again, all of their games on paper look very winnable. It's just whether or not Michigan loses focus, as Michigan has tended to do besides this year for the past 50 years, right? But the level of disrespect that I felt the Michigan, in a good way, that the football program had on Saturday to Penn State was something I haven't seen before. So the final score was 41-17. Penn State basically got 14 points, one off of a pick six that someone batted in the air and then landed on a dude's helmet and bounced back up into the air and then was picked off and returned. Right?
It looked just as funny as it was described by Micaiah.
Yep. And then the other one was a third down zone read option that was actually played decently well and Sean Clifford took off for 60 yards. So on 2 plays, they basically got 14 points. And then on the rest of their plays, they got 3 points. Outside of that Sean Clifford 64-yard rush, the Nittany Lions had 60 total rushing yards between their running backs and then whatever else Sean Clifford did. So Michigan just utterly dominated Penn State. It was nice to see. It was Michigan's announcement to the nation, the conference, and specifically Ohio State, that we are still the big boys on campus, and technically we are still the reigning Big Ten champions, so come and get it. And you know what? We're going to come to your place Thanksgiving weekend.
So this is a little transitioning into the other big game, but with Tennessee's, spoiler alert, Tennessee's upset in the final minutes where the goalpost washed up, apparently. They were thrown into the river and then washed up later. I'm pretty sure on the side of the interstate. I'm going to have to double-check my story there.
That happened before.
What?
Like, it may have happened this most recent time, but that's happened before.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe
this
that's
whole
the
goalpost
tradition.
Thing. Yeah, the whole goalpost thing is that when they beat Bama, they tear down the goalpost, and they parade them through the town, and then they throw them in the river. So it may have happened this time, but it also did happen before.
Okay, so that must be the tradition then. Well, then I'm not going to fact-check it because I'm sure it's true at that point. Tennessee is ranked 3rd. Michigan is ranked 7. Yes, Tennessee's win was bigger. Sorry, I said 7. I meant 4. Do you think that technically moves Michigan up and them and Clemson switch place, with the Clemson only having a 3-point win against Florida State? Do you like that, or do you think Michigan should be 3-2 with Ohio State?
No, I don't mind it, absolutely. If Michigan kind of keeps dominating teams the way they dominated Penn State, and I think it'll kind of work itself out. Again, the top 10 is still trash to me and means nothing because Ohio State still should be number 1. I know Georgia demolished Vanderbilt 55-0 because they own Vanderbilt. In the last 2 games with Vanderbilt, it's been 62-0 and 55-0, so you see that level of competition gap there between those 2 schools. So, but still, Ohio State has looked the best. I don't care that they haven't played anybody. They played a good Notre Dame defense. They've played good offenses since then, and they've kind of done whatever they want to do. So I said anything after 4 last week. I don't really care what you wanted to do with the top 10. As of this point, with the Bama loss, Michigan on the rise, I would say anything after it's Ohio State 1, Georgia 2, whatever you wanted to do with the rest of the top 10, I'm still okay with. Now, like I said, if Michigan starts demolishing everyone and looking the way they looked on Saturday, or close to it, Tennessee takes a step back, then absolutely I think Michigan should be up there. I have no problem with Michigan 4 and Tennessee 3, though.
Okay. Alabama takes on Mississippi State, number 24, Mississippi State, 7 p.m. on ESPN. And Michigan is hosting... Huh?
On a bye.
Oh, did I...
They're on a bye.
They're on a bye.
Yeah, they're on a bye week, yeah.
Michigan's on a bye week. Oh,
correct.
I see.
Yes,
I see.
Yes,
they take on Michigan State on the 29th.
Correct.
On ABC at 7:30 p.m. In Ann Arbor. A couple other upsets that shook up the top 10. We might as well just go by rankings this week.
Yep.
TCU outlasting Oklahoma State. So Oklahoma State now dropping to number 11. TCU rising all the way to 8-0. This looked like an overtime game. I didn't see or hear anything about this. I'm assuming you watched it. It
was it was going on the same time as Bama going on, so I was watching it without sound. But this was actually a comeback. It was 24-7 at one point in favor of the Cowboys from Oklahoma State. And TCU just kept battling. Spencer Sanders kind of in the second half of that game kind of reverted back to what he was, kind of I believe he turned the ball over a few times, and he just wasn't really doing it with his legs and doing it through the air. And then all of a sudden that high-powered TCU offense and the lackluster defense that is the Oklahoma State Cowboys finally kicked in at the exact same time, and that was not good for anyone. However, Oklahoma State, I had them plus 3.5. TCU won by 3, so it technically still counts as a win.
Nice.
Yeah, right?
And that's what matters.
And
what did you get this
matters.
week?
I went 3-2 this week, so I am 22-17 on the year.
And your boy went... Why isn't mine showing up in my... That's weird. I went 4-1 again. So,
yeah, buddy!
Going back and forth and back... Oh, there it is. It moved down.
So this means everyone picked the
forth.
opposite of what Simeon takes this week, and then you'll go 4-1 because he's going to go 1-4.
Yeah, probably.
It has been 1-4, 4-1, 1-4, 4-1. So you're due for a 1-4 type week.
You know what? My picks basically there. TCU goes to Manhattan to take on number Tennessee. Kansas State 8 p.m. on FS1.
What was that language? Goes to Manhattan. I don't think that's true. Kansas State's going to TCU.
Oh, I'm sorry. I read it. Versus. Yeah, versus. Sorry. Yep. No, they're coming to Dallas. I apologize. I read that backwards.
Okay.
Yeah. For those of you, that's Manhattan, Kansas, not Manhattan, New York.
Literally the middle of nowhere.
Literally the middle of nowhere. UCLA.
Yes.
Now, is this more UCLA being 6-0, or is this more Utah upsetting USC?
Both.
That put UCLA up at 9.
I think it's both. So anyone who didn't stay up late, that game was awesome. USC looked like they were going to run away with it. They were up 21-7 at one point midway through the second quarter, kind of doing whatever they did offensively. Then Utah's defense kind of woke up, started to slow them down a little bit. Utah scored a touchdown with about 43 seconds left, and then went for 2, and then that was the ultimate decider. There. USC's defense finally kind of bit them in the ass. We kind of all predicted it. We knew that that was going to be the case early in the season. We were just surprised it hadn't happened up until this point. Seeming to answer your question, UCLA's offense is ridiculously good. They have a 50-year senior quarterback who started all 5 years for them in Dorian Thompson-Robinson. They have Mike, Bobo, I think his name is, the wide receiver. I'm pretty sure it's Bobo, and he's a transfer from Duke. He is absolutely nice. And then they have Zach Charbonnet, the transfer from Michigan, doing good things on the ground. So, little bit of both. I've been also impressed with UCLA's defense. And right now they are, in my belief, UCLA is the cream of the crop in the Pac-12.
I'm trying to click on them so I can tell you where they are because I'm really good at transitioning and my computer's deciding to be a butt. They are at number 10, Oregon, who is also at that stroke, has also cracked the top 10. That's 3:30 on Fox. Didn't Oregon lose to Georgia? They started off with a loss to Georgia at the beginning of the year, right?
They did. Jake Bobo is his name. Sorry, Jake. Did get your name wrong there. Yes, game day is going to be at. This is the game day is going to. So they will be at Eugene. It's 3:30 game, so it's a 12:30 kickoff out there. Over there in the forest at Oregon.
There you go.
And it's going to be entertaining. It's one of my top 5 big games. Oregon's kind of come back around since that absolutely demolishing that they took at the hands of Georgia week 1, but it'll be exciting. I hope.
Who knows? You'll let us know later. USC, is that bad? Is it good? What you mean? You kind of called it. They were due for one, but
yeah, I think their offense is still going to be what it is. I don't like the reactions from Caleb Williams still. Kind of. He still's reminding me a little bit as a prima donna, at least on the football field, which is fine. But I just think that eventually he'll get frustrated if this continues. I think it's a problem because their defense isn't up to par, and if they, say they find their way into the college football playoff, which is still possible, but they got to go through UCLA, who scores 45 points a game. Your defense, you can't just always expect your offense to outscore people. You got to be able to come up with stops, and I haven't seen their defense be able to do that to this point in big games. So on the panic meter, I'm a little worried.
Okay, that's a good meter.
Yeah.
You prefer to be in the green on that one. Talking about another team, as we wrap up here, Syracuse.
Oh, yeah.
24-9 against NC State. This was in the Dome. This was one of your games last week, wasn't it?
It was my game last. It wasn't exactly fair because the starting quarterback, Devin Leary, is out for the season with a torn pec. So he's having surgery. He's done for the season. Syracuse defense is legit. They're going to Clemson, Death Valley this weekend. One of my top 5 games I will cover later on the program. So make sure you stick around and check that out. It's a nice little story. I'm not going to lie. Again, Kansas is number 1 for the stories, and then there's James Madison. Syracuse is a nice little story here, and Syracuse kind of back in long time ago, the 80s, 90s, were kind of a top-tier football team, and they've kind of been battling back ever since. They're a nice story, good defense, decent offense, they run the ball and do what they will, a lot like another team in Illinois that's kind of got my attention now.
I was going to move to them.
Illinois
Only lost to Indiana by 3, beating Minnesota 26-14.
And they turned the ball over 3 times in that game and had a chance to win it at the end of regulation as well. Illinois has turned into kind of what Wisconsin is supposed to be. Run the ball excellent. They have the nation's leading rusher in Chase Brown. In the backfield, they have a really strong defense that likes to stop the run, so a very good, solid team that's going to be a tough out for everyone. Michigan gets them on senior night at home the week before Ohio State. Could be a trap game, could be a little slip-up game, but I'm starting to pay attention to Illinois a little bit, so naturally, I think they're on a bye this week because I don't think I see them. So naturally, next week they're going to lose, but, it is what it is.
They're at Nebraska, 3:30 p.m. next week. Syracuse obviously takes on the Tigers. Micaiah will go into it. One thing that I just wanted to bring up, by the way, the Tigers 13.5-point favorites. Again, Micaiah will bring this up a little bit later. Clemson. If they beat Clemson, then they're versus Notre Dame, so they get Notre Dame at home. Then they're at Pitt, versus Florida State, at Wake Forest, at Boston College. So, no offense, Syracuse, the toughest part of your schedule is up ahead of you. So we're going to see. And
100%. And they've only been on the road once. At UConn.
At UConn, correct.
Which doesn't even count as a road game.
Right. Yeah. This is their second road game. Right. And of the 3 teams that you mentioned, Syracuse was the only one to win a game. Unfortunately, James Madison lost by a touchdown to Georgia Southern. And
womp,
Kansas got... Huh?
I said womp womp.
Yeah. They take on... Are they on my game? Okay. They were going to be on my games. They're not... Oh, no, they are on my game this week. They take on Marshall at home this week. And then, Kansas lost badly to Oklahoma, which
it actually turned out to be a 10-point game.
Okay,
so
it wasn't bad in the first half.
Yeah, so Oklahoma was, I'm sure, just got their butts reamed out by their coaches all week, coming off of a 49-0 loss to Texas in a rivalry game, Red River rivalry. They got their quarterback back in Dalen Gabriel. So that offense was going to put up a lot of points on a Kansas defense that, if you've looked historically this season, has actually been kind of bad. Like, the only real good game they played was against Iowa State, and Iowa State's offense is not good either. So Iowa State's kind of turning into a little bit of what Iowa historically is. So that's... Kansas, great story. Hope they make a bowl game. They got a shot to make a bowl game with that offense. Starting quarterback still is out. Jason Bean came in, again, put up 42 points. It's just your defense gave up 52.
Speaking of Iowa State and Texas, that's who played this weekend. It was in Texas, and 24-21 didn't necessarily look like that all game. Is Texas a top 10 team with Quinn Ewers, sorry.
I think they still have to prove it, and they have a great chance to be with what and who is on their schedule. It starts this week. They travel.
They're going to Oklahoma State, then they're at Kansas State, then they're versus TCU, at Kansas versus Baylor.
So 3 of those 5 teams are ranked.
The next 3 teams are currently ranked, yes.
Baylor's the defending Big 12 champion, so they're going to fight with pride. And then Kansas is just, at this point, back along just for the ride of it, and that's a dangerous team to play with an offense that scores a lot of points. So is Kansas a top 10 team with Quinn Ewers? We're going to find out. I think I think yes, but I think the more realistic question is if they go 5-0 with the remainder of that schedule, Bud, and then they go to the Big 12 title game, and let's just say they get Oklahoma State again.
Sure.
Who's ranked in the top 15.
Right now it would be TCU.
Or they get TCU, who's ranked in the... So they play them once, and then they're going to play them again, and TCU's hanging right around 11-12, right?
It's the Big 12. They'd be at 15, but yeah, continue.
And they beat them down in the Big 12 title game. Does that make them a playoff team?
I don't know. I think... Everybody says if Quinn Ewers didn't get injured in the Alabama game, they would have won that. And obviously, if Quinn Ewers wasn't injured, they would have beaten Texas Tech because those are the 3 games he was out. Was he out against West Virginia, and then he came back against Oklahoma? One of those things. Anyway, they won 2. They went 2-2 or 2-1 or 1-2 without him. It would be considerable for the first 2-loss team to go into the playoffs, but honestly, a better storyline might be throwing. And when is the first college football ranking come out?
First week of November, I think.
Okay, so it
comes out with like 4 weeks left. Yeah.
Okay, so we have 2 weeks left here. And if I'm looking at the rankings right now, the AP rankings right now, it's hard to, because a better storyline would be putting a Clemson in. Clemson 7-0 right now. So, you have a 7-0 Georgia team, assuming Tennessee wins out, a undefeated Tennessee team, which is possible. I'm not going to put it against them. You have a 7-0 Clemson team, and if Ole Miss can do the impossible and beat Alabama, you would have an undefeated Alabama team plus Ohio State and Georgia.
I think though
those are 6 teams that could go undefeated, and it would be hard to put a 2-loss Texas team, a very good, who could beat any one of those teams on their worst day.
So the problem is right now is that the SEC is positioned that right now, that the loser of that championship game can probably still make the college football playoff.
Sure.
Right. And that's how the SEC has been positioned. So no matter, you're looking at an undefeated Ohio State, probably, and then it's either going to be Georgia or Tennessee at this point in the SEC championship game against probably Alabama. If Alabama wins that, so then let's just say Tennessee beats Georgia, Tennessee makes it. So then you have a 1-loss Tennessee and an SEC champion Alabama.
1-loss Alabama.
That rematch was a close game again. You got to figure that Tennessee beating Alabama earlier in the year is still going to make it. Alabama's going to make it. Ohio State's going to make it. Now it comes down to who else. Is Clemson undefeated? Let's just say Clemson.
Is UCLA undefeated?
Is UCLA undefeated? That's true. So let's just throw the Pac-12 out because I think the Pac-12 will cannibalize each other at this point.
That's only what happens.
Let's say Clemson makes it all the way to the ACC title game against, I don't know, pick a team, and then loses. So they are a 1-loss non-conference champion, but let's just say it was a tight loss, it was a great game, whatever. Right?
Yeah.
And then you have Texas, a 2-loss Big 12 champion. but they've looked good the last 6 weeks of the season. Then I think you have an argument, but what the situation you gave, Texas has no argument, unfortunately. Hence, why we need the expansion to 12 teams.
Yeah, and it would be good because then Texas would be in. They wouldn't be in right now, but if they win out, which is very likely, assuming they continue playing the way that they've been playing with Quinn Ewers. When does Arch Manning come? Quinn Ewers has 2 more years, right?
I think Arch Manning comes next year.
He's a 2023 prospect, I believe.
Right, so he would come next year, so he's still got to sit behind Quinn Ewers, who I think is a redshirt sophomore.
He's either a redshirt freshman.
He's a redshirt freshman this year. Did we talk Bama and Tennessee?
We did a little bit.
Okay, well, I'm going to talk a little bit more about this just for a second here.
That's fine.
What people don't need to realize, it was a very exciting game. Go watch a 10-minute recap highlight on YouTube. There are a million of them. Listen, Tennessee beat them for the first time in 15 years. They stormed the field, tore down the goalposts. They got fined by the SEC for fans rushing the field, $100,000, and then it's going to be $50,000 to replace both goalposts. Probably. So they put up a GoFundMe on the internet, basically some booster. Even the president, there's a video of the president of the university. He's saying, someone asked him, how much is it going to cost to replace those goalposts? And they scan to the president. President goes, I don't care. We'll do this every year if we have to. So,
which is smart.
Someone's going to write a check for that money. They're not going to take it from the students, or maybe they will. I don't really care. The bigger story here is that Bama committed 17 penalties.
They're leading the nation in penalties.
For 135 yards. So, let me take you through a sequence of events real quick. Simeon, if you didn't watch the game. Tennessee fumbles. Alabama just scored the tying touchdown at 42. Tennessee then fumbles an exchange between the quarterback, running back, picked up by Alabama, returned for a touchdown. It is 49-42. Tennessee's kind of getting a little desperate now. They move the ball downfield a good chucks, and Hendon Hooker takes a shot towards the end zone. It is woefully underthrown, and it is intercepted by Kool-Aid McKinstry. Yes.
Yeah, I forgot there was a guy named Kool-Aid in the league.
That is actually returned for a touchdown. Okay? Pass interference on the play negates the whole thing, and so Tennessee has the ball now, and then they go on the very next play. They go down, boop, boop, and they score a touchdown that ties the game. Alabama had a chance to kick the game-winning field goal with 15 seconds left. Didn't get that done. Tennessee takes its 2 timeouts, goes about 50 yards the other way, and scores a touchdown, or scores a field goal that wins the game. But the biggest story here is that Alabama committed 17 penalties. Simeon, I also saw this stat.
Mm-hmm.
In the game against Texas, 14 penalties. 2 years ago against LSU, in which LSU won the game, 13 penalties. In recent memory now, in big games, Alabama is kind of falling apart mentally, and that is something we haven't seen before. And I think, I'm not saying this is the end of the Alabama dynasty and the end of the Saban era. I'm just saying we haven't seen this before, so it should be a red flag. Something that you don't see when it starts happening and it's reoccurrence, it's not a one-off, you need to look seriously at.
So here's the surprising news. This is, shout out to Fox CBS, Fox CFP. They call it CFB on, which I don't know why CFB, college football something, on Fox, their Instagram. Most penalties in the 2022 FBS season. Alabama is first with 66. Utah State, UMass, Houston, and Maryland are the top 4, technically top 5. Houston and Maryland are tied with 59. Guys, that's not a list you want to be on if you're a successful program.
What's the gap in between Bama and the second place? Like how many penalty? Oh, okay. So
Utah State.
Still, yeah, it's
Utah State.
Yep.
You know how I made a joke earlier this season that Florida teams suck with discipline?
Yeah, we've made it ever. Yep.
And that has cost Florida State, Miami, University of Central, literally every single Florida team, including Florida, has cost them games, has been their discipline.
Sure.
And you're 100% right. Nick Saban's getting old. All of a sudden, his players' discipline goes out the window because his coordinators loop every single year. We know Bill O'Brien wasn't good with with discipline.
Yeah.
Hello, Deshaun Watson.
Yep.
So, I 100% agree with you that, guys, this might be the end of a golden era for Alabama. Because Nick Saban could get paid millions upon millions, more money than Tom Brady probably, to go be an analyst for college or for NFL. He could go do that for a couple years, then retire. Or go be an offensive consultant somewhere or defensive consultant somewhere. Go work for Bill Belichick, because Lord knows they've traded enough assistants over the years. And then retire in Alabama and drink free at any bar he ever goes to. He's one of the greatest coaches of all time. Football coaches of all time. Yeah, probably. It's either that or he's going to come back next year on a revenge tour and blow everybody out by 28 points.
Well, see, and that's the thing with him. As soon as we start criticizing Alabama and Nick Saban and calling for that the dynasty is going to be over, he comes back and he goes on a revenge tour. 2019, it was supposed to be after they got blown out by LSU. They come back 2020 and just demolish everyone on their way to a national title game.
Yeah, but this is different because he stopped getting the top recruits.
I understand that, but you can still not get the top recruit. Why I'm alarmed is you can still not get the top recruits and still be disciplined and still play a good game. And
that's what I'm saying. His teams have become undisciplined. He has no consistency in his assistants. We're down to Bill O'Brien as his offensive coordinator. Dude's not a genius. He was great at Penn State, but pieced out as quick as humanly possible to go to the NFL. And the only reason he's at Alabama is because he's going to go get a head coaching job somewhere else next year.
Yes.
Because someone's going to offer it to him.
Absolutely.
So he has no consistency. He's lost discipline. And all of a sudden, Texas, effing Jackson State, Florida, Miami, Michigan, Ohio State are all taking his recruits.
Yep.
They're all going elsewhere. And Lord knows if he doesn't make them look good, he's not a transfer portal coach. He's not. He's a development coach. He's really good at developing players. So I'm just saying he has to make a change this coming year, or he's going to start trending downhill. I think that's where you and I disagree. Because if he doesn't make a change to turn into more transfer portal happy coach, who knows?
All I'm saying is, Sim, I've been there before, and I've already had the prediction you have had, where if he doesn't change, blah blah blah.
It's different this time, though.
And then what? And I've said that before. It's different this time. And then what happens? He just goes out and he does what? And now watch. Come the end of November, they're going to be number 2 in the land because they're going to absolutely demolish everyone, including LSU, Auburn, blah, 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 blah. They're going to win the SEC, and then they're going to win the national title over Ohio State when Ohio State's favored by like 10 points. That's what's going to happen.
Who knows? All right, let's jump into this week's schedule. We got a Wednesday night game for you. Anybody who's interested in a little bit of Fun Belt, who has still been fun a little bit, Appalachian State at Georgia. We got 2 Thursday night games for you, including an ACC game, Georgia Tech, Virginia, as well as South Alabama and Troy. That's on ESPNU, so they're actually getting some coverage. Friday night game, Temple, Tulsa, UAB, Western Kentucky. Guys, that UAB, Western Kentucky, if you like to watch pretty good football and you just want something on in the background, go watch that one. But we're really only worried about Saturday.
Yeah, baby.
Starting it off on Micaiah's least favorite brand, Big Noon Kickoff.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. And
also,
did you see that poll? Yes.
That poll it's done by Michigan fans for Michigan fans.
I 100%, I understand that. But
The poll is the majority by a large shot thinks that the mains out should be
at night.
At the night instead of their biggest game, because Micaiah thinks that the big noon kickoff on Fox is stupid.
It is stupid.
He is Captain Boring.
It is stupid. The big games need to go under the light at nighttime, okay? And by the way, Fox is like big noon kickoff. We have the biggest game at noon. No, you don't. Because the biggest game this weekend clearly was Tennessee and Alabama.
Well,
everyone disagrees with that statement except for
the biggest
Fox.
noon. Biggest noon asterisk that we have rights to. And anybody who doesn't understand that we have rights to part.
No, but that's what they should put in the commercial. If Fox started saying the biggest game that we have the rights to at noon,
they should put it in parentheses at like 8-point font.
The
right
biggest game, right, that we have rights to. If they did that, then Big Noon Kickoff would immediately come my favorite time slot. But they don't. They claim that these are the biggest games, and they're not.
Well, the biggest game they have this week is number 2 Ohio State taking on.
But that's the thing. They have rights to Oregon, UCLA.
Yeah, but that would be a 9 a.m. kickoff game.
But that's what I'm saying. That's why the time slot is so dumb. I understand you want to put the games on when CBS and ABC and ESPN, they put their kind of big games on in the 3:30 and after time slot. So I understand that you're trying to get it in before that. But you can't claim that Iowa at Ohio State, where the over-under is 49.5, and Ohio State is favored by 29 points, is a bigger game than number 9 UCLA going on the road to number 10 Oregon.
You're killing me, Smalls.
You see what I'm saying? Like, I think everyone agrees with me here.
I'm in danger.
No one cares!
Okay, like, literally, you're the only one who's on this horse.
You know what? I don't think so. Hit me up in the DMs at 4th and 1 Podcast on Instagram. Comment down below. Do you guys agree with me? Because I feel like you should.
It is a big noon kickoff for Oregon and UCLA because guess what? The game's at 3:30 and it's 3 hours behind.
I understand that, but then just make the big noon kickoff. Send Gus and Joe to the 3:30 game and do the 3:30 game. Like, make that your big time game because people are going to tune into that game more than people are going to tune into Iowa at Ohio State.
Figured out.
Hi, I'm Paul.
If Ohio State doesn't win this game by 40 points, they should drop out from the AP top 25.
It became personal with me.
That's what should happen on Saturday.
You done? Are you done?
All right, I can be done. I'm just saying that this game is a joke. Like it's going to be easily 35-0. Easily.
All right. I guess we'll come back to it then. So at 12 p.m. on the SEC Network. Never mind, that's UT Martin, Tennessee. I mean on 12 p.m.
Or as Fox calls it, the biggest game of the day.
Number 14 Syracuse going to Death Valley in Clemson to take on number 5 Clemson.
Yeah. So this is statistically, Syracuse's defense is actually better than Clemson's, giving up 268 yards per game to Clemson's 338 now. Clemson has kind of faced better opponents. Clemson has gone on the road for their big games. At Florida State was a 6-point win. At Wake Forest was a 6-point win, and then they did go to Boston College. So they've been on the road in big game environments already. Syracuse, the only road game, as we said, was UConn. Doesn't really count as a road game. And then they've been home to Purdue, was a 3-point win. Home to Virginia, 2-point win. Home to Wagner, whatever. And then home to NC State, which was a 15-point win without their starting quarterback. So this is kind of the first real test for Syracuse, and Clemson is just going to hear about how they didn't finish the game against Florida State because it really shouldn't have been that close. It was about a 17-point game for most of that game, and then kind of Florida State got back into it late. So First real test for Syracuse. Clemson's going to try to reassert their dominance. This won't end well for anyone. That's why ABC has it on at noon, because it doesn't mean anything.
Anyway, moving on to the 3:30 games, I'm going to start with the battle of
A white man!
in BYU taking on Liberty. I literally just wanted to set that up for that
Nice.
exact thing.
Yeah, there
this is
it is.
actually a pretty big game for both of them. Liberty is still in the independent, as is BYU. I think both are set to join a conference, kind of in that conference reshuffle in the next 3 to 5 years. I know BYU's joining the Big 12. I want to say Liberty's joining like the Sun Belt or Conference USA or something like that. I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, game's interesting. In theory, I should be picking this one, and I'm just going to really quick. Over-under's 58. BYU is favored by 6.5. Liberty's 6-1. BYU is 4-3. I'm going to take Liberty on this one, even though they're forced to kind of play no names, unlike BYU. But BYU hasn't shown up in big games. They've lost to Arkansas, Notre Dame, and Oregon. So, yeah, I'm going to take Liberty on that one. Just a little quick
They're
extra
joining Conference USA, just so you know.
Look at me. I called it. Okay, 3:30 games that we actually care about. Number 7, Ole Miss, going to Tiger Stadium in LSU, 3:30 CBS.
Big,
What do you got?
well, big time game for Ole Miss. Ole Miss likes to run the football. They run it a lot. They run it very effectively. And this is actually Charlie Weiss's son, who was with Lane Kiffin at FAU. And then when Jeff Lebby left and took the Oklahoma job this last offseason, Charlie's son was promoted and is now the OC, and he likes to run the football. Listen, LSU is 5-2, but they're 3-1 in conference. If they keep winning out, the matchup with Alabama probably, assuming they win out, the matchup with Alabama it's got to be here in a few weeks. Is
Ole Miss or LSU?
LSU is actually could be for the West Division. So both of these teams, it's a high stake for both of these teams. More high for LSU because another loss kind of knocks them out of the whole thing. Ole Miss can still suffer a loss and still somehow manage to win the West Division.
There you go. November 5th, they play Alabama, and that is versus Alabama. So they get them at home.
Yeah.
Which is never good for Nick Saban. Going down the list, we talked about this a little bit earlier. Micaiah's butt hurt this game isn't the big one for Fox. Number 9 UCLA taking on number 10 Oregon in Eugene. That's where game day is going to be. I'm guessing this is one of your pick games too?
Yes, it's going to be a fun game. I think it has the potential to be a high-scoring game. Great environment there in Eugene for when Chip Kelly was there, kind of had the known as the best home field advantage. Oregon's a heavy favorite. Problem is Oregon's defense is actually not as good. They're giving up about 6 more points a game than UCLA is, and they're giving up about 30 more yards a game, mostly through the air. So I think that this is going to be a high-scoring game, going to be very fun. Bo Nix is at home. He always plays better at home than on the road, but Oregon kind of... I'm sure if they had a mulligan, they would kind of go back and want to replay Georgia now, because I'm sure that game wouldn't be as lopsided as what it ended up being for 42-0 or 49-0 in week 1. That is their only loss. Ever since that loss, they've beaten Eastern Washington FC. They've beaten BYU 41-20, Washington State 44-41, Stanford 45-27, and then Arizona 49-22. Alrighty.
Apparently that makes noises.
Yes. You didn't know that?
No clue.
So it's going to be fun. UCLA has played the bigger matchups. They have played number 15 Washington at the time and number 11 at the time Utah, both at home. So this is their first big road game of the season.
Oh, there's candy that can go in its head. Wow, I just ate the candy.
Alrighty.
We're having fun with Baby Yoda, everybody. ABC's 3:30 game is number 20 Texas going to number 11 Oklahoma State. Stillwater.
They remind me of an old school Oklahoma State team. Score a lot of points, but also give up a lot of points. Their defense was the reason they lost this past Saturday to
Come
TCU.
after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
That is their head coach in Mike Gundy. Texas with Quinn Ewers. We talked about them potentially being a top 10 team with Quinn Ewers. Their defense is actually pretty good. Their defense is giving up on the season 347 yards, so it's pretty decent to Oklahoma State's 437, so giant gap there. It's going to be a fun one. Kind of again, I assume it's going to be a high-scoring game in Stillwater. Going to be fun, going to be loud. We'll see what happens.
Going down the list, we're now into the late game, 7 p.m. ESPN, number 24. I'm trying to remember his name. Forgot it.
Mike Leach.
Mississippi State taking on number 6 Alabama. This is in Tuscaloosa. This doesn't look good for Mississippi State.
No, and unfortunately, I think we talked about this a little bit last week. Mississippi State had LSU loss and at Kentucky loss. Home, though, they've won. They even beat Texas A&M and they beat Arkansas, and they kind of roughed up both those teams. So on the road, they're not very good. At home, they are very good. They're going on a road to Alabama after a loss. It's going to be night. The spread is 21. I'm not touching this game at all. The over-under 61.5. I would say hit that over if you're going to choose anything. I'm not touching this game at all because this could go one of two ways. Alabama could be undisciplined, and it could not end well again for them. And it could be close. I still think they win. Or Nick Saban and his coaches got so pissed off at the players, they coached them up real good. It's going to be a perfect game from Alabama, and they're going to beat them by 45 points. It's one of two ways. There's no in between.
My name is Jeff.
Going to the ABC, and here's the deal: you make fun of these, and then ABC at 7:30 puts on Minnesota.
No, and
at Penn
I
State.
have a problem with this as well.
Now, granted, this is the whiteout game, but really, you picked this to be the whiteout game.
And again, why didn't you put Texas Oklahoma also on ABC? Texas Oklahoma State, also on ABC in this time slot. You know what I'm saying? So, again, it works both ways. This is Penn State's whiteout game, coming off the absolute beatdown that Michigan just handed them. And then Minnesota coming off of a loss to Illinois.
Right?
And Tanner Morgan got knocked out of that game. They only managed to score 14 points against Illinois. Over-under is 45.5. So I don't know what to do there. But going to be a good environment. Penn State's probably going to win the game. The spread now is only 5, so I would probably take Nittany Lions minus the 5. But, yeah, I mean, should be hopefully will be entertaining. I hope Penn State loses because I hate Penn State. And I like Mo Ibrahim, the running back from Minnesota, but not much to say. I agree with you. ABC does this all the time.
So, and then speaking of Fox, putting them on FS1, number 17 Kansas State with one of the two quarterbacks to not throw an interception this year with a minimum 100 yards attempt. Adrian Martinez goes into Dallas to take on number 8 TCU FS1. Sorry, Fort Worth. I keep saying Dallas.
Yeah, it's the
Worth.
same thing. This is on FS1, Simeon, because the MLB playoffs are on Fox. That's why. So I don't like that any more than you do, but now I have cable. When I was younger, I would complain about it because, we didn't have cable for the longest time. Now I have cable, so, I have YouTube TV.
I was going to say, by cable,
sponsor us.
YouTube TV. We would do that.
We would take a sponsor from YouTube TV, YouTube TV, YouTube TV. Anyway, yes, that's a very interesting.
You like that?
Very interesting stat about Adrian Martinez not throwing an interception. Kansas State likes to run the football, averages 245 yards per game. Defense is kind of stout, allowing 350. TCU, 526 yards of offense, but their defense is allowing 400 yards, and they're giving up about 27.5 points a game. Going to be another fun one. TCU is the cream of the crop. Can they stay the cream of the crop, or are they going to sink to the bottom?
Alrighty. It's that time of the episode, the one that you guys probably care about, but who knows? We never hear from you guys. 4th and 1 podcast at Instagram. Micaiah gets to go first because Simeon has his picks, but he got to lock them in. So, Micaiah, you got 5 for us. You went 3 and 2 last week.
Yeah,
What do you got
baby.
for us this week?
Yeah, baby. Went 3 and 2 last week. 22 and 17 overall in the year. By the way, I did a spicy little all my others picks last week. I teased them a little bit. I got the +7 teaser. They all hit last week, too, so I am ridiculously hot. But here we go. Number 14, Syracuse, going to Death Valley, the real Death Valley. Number 5, Clemson. Syracuse, as I said earlier in the show, statistically has the better defense, but all games have been played at home except for UConn. Doesn't count, so all games have been played at home. Clemson is at home, coming off of a disappointing win to Florida State. Only a 6-point win, probably should have been 17, but such is life, I guess. DJ Uyunglele is continuing to progress and become a better passer. He's using his legs a little bit more. They're getting that running game going, and that defensive line for Clemson is ridiculously good. Messed up that, but I don't really care. I think Clemson wins, but Syracuse somehow keeps it close because Syracuse's defense is legitimately good. On the road, we'll have to see what transpires there, but within the last 5 to 7 seasons, Syracuse has actually played Clemson, especially on the road, very, very close. So I like Syracuse to keep it close, +13.5. The game of the day, number 9 UCLA going to number 10 Oregon. It's going to be good. Game day is going to be there. They're going to be rough. They're going to be rowdy. They're going to be loud in the side of the hill that is Autzen Stadium. Both offenses averaging over 500 yards per game. Both defensive, though, giving up over 345 yards per game. Oregon has a tad worse defense, gives up about 377 yards. Bo Nix is at home. I cannot stress that enough. He's a much different quarterback at home and on the road, at least through his college career up until this point. He is at home. That means he's going to be good. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, in his 5th year of that Chip Kelly offense, has this offensive humming. They're averaging about 47 points per game. UCLA has the tad better defense. Their rushing defense is about the same. UCLA, I just realized when going through the whole pregame thing is what we did a little bit ago. This is their first true road game of the season as well. I like them to keep it close. You take UCLA plus the 6.5, but I think Oregon actually ends up winning. Number 20, Texas, going to OK State. Both teams averaging over 430 yards of offense. OK State is allowing 300 yards passing a game, going up against Quinn Ewers, one of the best-rated quarterbacks ever to come out of high school, and he has been money for Texas this season. 2 ways you could go with this. Mike Gundy, with his team historically being underdog, usually covers. They are a 6.5-point underdog. I like the over, though. Yes, Texas's defense is very good. Texas only allowing 347 yards per game, but I think this is a lot of points. The over-under currently 62.5, but I think you take OK State at home underdog plus the 6.5. Number 17, Kansas State, going to number 8, TCU. Will TCU continue being the cream of the crop, or will they sink to the bottom? Kansas State averaging 245 rushing yards per game. TCU allowing 135 rushing yards per game. So who wins that battle is who's going to win this game. I think it's TCU. I think it's high scoring. The over-under, to me, is just a tad low at 55.5. I would put it around 59, but the people in Vegas know what they're doing. So, Kansas State's going to run the ball, chew the clock. TCU's those going to take big chunk plays in for touchdowns. TCU wins at night at home, but you bet the over 55.5. And finally, number 7, Ole Miss. Kind of if you backtrack to the beginning of the day at noon, going to unranked LSU. As I said earlier in the show, LSU is 5-2 but 3-1 in conference. They have everything in front of them in the SEC conference, and especially in that West Division. So this game is huge. Ole Miss, first real big test. Here we go. They like to run the ball for 270 yards per game. That's what they're averaging. LSU allows 135 rushing yards per game. Something's got to give. I think it's more the LSU defense than it is the offensive line of Mississippi State. I like Ole Miss to win, but I like the under. Every time both of these teams have played in a big game with two decent defenses, and Ole Miss has a decent defense, the games have always kind of been low scoring, well under 55 points. So I think you bet the under 66.5. However, if it comes down to around 60, that's when you bet the over there. Ole Miss to win, though, which is a pick'em game as well. So just a quick little recap here. Syracuse keeps it close, plus 13.5. Clemson wins. I think Oregon wins, but UCLA keeps it within 6.5. I think Texas wins, but OK State keeps it within 6.5. Or you bet the over 62.5. TCU wins. They score more than 55 points. Ole Miss wins, and you bet the under in a relatively low-scoring game, 66.5. And that is Micaiah's top 5 big games of the week.
All right, let's go back over to mine here. It's a pretty straightforward group of 6. A bunch of over-unders and one outright. At 1 p.m. on Saturday, we have Toledo taking on the Buffalo Bulls. Should be an interesting game. Over-under is set at 58.5. Guys, these games always score like 60. I don't know what it is with Mac, but both teams score 30-something points. I don't know what it is. Or both teams could carry the 50 points. So I'd take the over there. Tulane at Memphis. Tulane is ranked. They're the random 25th ranked team. Memphis has looked good. Tulane has looked better. Tulane's at home. I'm taking Tulane just straight up to win. Nothing on.
What are the odds
fancy.
on that?
Minus 280.
Oh, not bad. Okay.
Yeah. Marshall at James Madison. This is a bounce back game for James Madison. Over under is 51 points. James Madison could do that by themselves probably this game. They won't need to, taking the over at 51.5. Utah State at Wyoming. Over under 42.5 points. These next two are very interesting. These are late games. These are Mountain West games. Utah State at Wyoming, over 42.5. Okay, that means both teams has to score at least 21 points. That one's going to be close, but I'm taking the over just because it's probably easy. This one's so low that it's almost stupid for me. Over 36.5 points.
Uh-oh.
San Diego State at Nevada.
Oh, you got to be careful there, bud.
Yeah, both are hardcore defensive teams. Obviously, you got the Fighting Brady Hoax.
Yeah,
and you have Nevada. I'm taking the over. Okay, both teams need to score 17 points in order to do this. Probably going to happen, but that probably also means, by me saying probably, by the way, these were just kind of, this game looks interesting, this game looks interesting, this game looks interesting. So I'm going to go 1-4 as I normally do on my off weeks. A wager of $1 gets you $18.77 on the win. And those are my 5 teams because, why make it difficult when you can have fun and just make it random?
My other picks, which I also said were hot, which are not my top 5 picks.
Sure.
You take the over 49.5 of Ohio State. I think Ohio State's going to score 56.
By themselves.
By
Yeah,
themselves.
that's fair.
It's going to be like 56-0. Minnesota, I forgot that Tanner Morgan left the game. I don't know if he's playing. So you take Penn State minus the 5, whiteout game at home, right? I like you can't come back and have another embarrassing showing after you were just a top 10 team with Sean Clifford and all of that. So I think Penn State minus the 5 with that defense is still a really good defense, even though I have nothing to back that up now.
Who do you think's going to win this game real quick? Hawaii at Colorado State.
Yeah, actually, I was looking at that because Hawaii is actually the underdog just because it's not at Hawaii, but Colorado State's really bad. Colorado State's really, really bad. I think they are the worst team in the FBS. I didn't even see...
Colorado might be. Those are literally Colorado State and Colorado. Those were the last 2 winless teams.
So Hawaii just came off of a win to Nevada, and Colorado State also beat Nevada. So Nevada might be the worst team, actually. I'm going to take Hawaii plus the points there. I think Hawaii wins.
Okay. Interesting. I'm not going to argue with you.
Wake and BC, the over-under 61.
Mm-hmm.
Love that over because I think Wake has a really good offense and a kind of a defense. So I think BC scores 20 points, but I think Wake puts up 40-plus points on BC. And then I really liked your JMU pick over 61.5.
I think Marshall's probably going to put up somewhere between 13 and 21 points. So it's at home for JMU, and it's after a loss. There's no way they're going to take the foot off the gas pedal for them.
Gas pedal.
So, yeah, that's just kind of where I'm at, all things considered. San Jose State's getting 21.5 points over New Mexico State, just for those of you keeping track, which is nobody.
Well,
it's
New Mexico State
San Jose straight.
And New Mexico State is very bad. Very, very porous. Listen,
Wake Forest is getting 20.5 points against Boston College.
Buddy, we are on the back side of the season. How you feeling?
Are you sad?
I'm very sad. Well, I'm excited because now we're getting in the meat. We're separating who's who. We're separating the good teams, obviously, from the mediocre teams, and the elite teams from the good teams. So I'm excited to see how the story's going to play out through the remainder of the season. But yeah, I mean, at this point, I always do get a little kind of bittersweet, you know? And then I'll kind of get real pumped for November, and then around the holidays, Championship Saturday, and then after that's all gone, then I get depressed, and then the college football playoff rolls around, and I get real excited, and then I get real depressed again for the rest of the winter. So that's me.
You have some emotions there, my guy.
I go through a lot of emotions. I'm in a glass case of emotions. Shout out Will Ferrell, Anchorman.
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the 4th and 1. That's the intro. This is the actual one.
There we go.
This has been the 4th and 1 podcast, again, brought to you by you guys, the fans. Anchor.fm at 4th and 1. I've been Fancy Trash Can. That's Captain Boring.
Wash your hands, you filthy animals. God bless. Peace out.
Peace out.